The Clarity Act. Does Washington's crypto bill actually protect decentralization or just make room for big finance? Hi, and welcome to another edition of Legally Insane News. I'm your host, Kyle O'Donnell. Today I'm going to be talking about the Clarity Act. Washington says it wants clarity for crypto, but clarity for whom and at what cost? On today's show, I'll distill the DAMC Act, what it is not, and what it means for the future of crypto. The Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, now moving through Congress, is being marketed as a long overdue fix to regulatory chaos in the U.S. cryptocurrency market. And by virtue of that, I'm assuming it's going to be regulatory in a way used as a hub for international cryptocurrency markets as well. Supporters say it finally ends the era of regulation by enforcement, and critics warn that it quietly centralizes crypto under the same institutional framework that governs Wall Street. And let's be honest, the crooks on Wall Street have felt threatened by crypto ever since it first came into being. Why? Because it places buying power back into the hands of the citizens. But whatever the case, both claims contain truth. The reality is more nuanced and certainly more consequential. So here's what the Clarity Act actually does. At its core, the bill is not a deregulation measure. It is a market structure bill designed to sort digital assets into legal boxes. The act creates two primary categories: digital securities, which are overseen by the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC, and digital commodities, overseen by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, or CFTC. If a token runs on a sufficiently decentralized blockchain, meaning no single party controls its operation, it may qualify as a digital commodity, placing it primarily under the CFTC jurisdiction rather than the FTC. That distinction matters because for years, crypto companies have argued the SEC was stretching the 1930s securities law to cover decentralized currency networks. The Clarity Act attempts to settle that fight by statute instead of lawsuits, which is basically how things have been settled since the advent of crypto and all of its various tools. Now, as for what the bill is not, despite rhetoric from both sides, the Clarity Act is neither a libertarian rollback of government oversight nor a return to the Wild West of early crypto. And it's also not a guarantee of anonymity or censorship resistance. Exchanges, brokers, custodians, and dealers would still face registration requirements, things like reporting obligations and compliance rules, especially around fraud, custody, and anti-money laundering standards. So in short, the bill doesn't free crypto from regulation, it just formalizes it. So the big question everyone's asking about this time is, who benefits most when this change takes effect? This is where the skepticism is warranted. Big banks and institutions benefit indirectly, but meaningfully. And it also plants the seeds to later be abused and overused. That's my biggest problem with it. Regulatory clarity reduces legal risk, which lowers the barrier for several things. First, banks can offer crypto custody, things like that. Second, dealer brokers would be able to trade digital assets. And third, asset managers could build crypto products, which is very different from the state we were in before, where basically they could be mined by anyone. Institutions already equipped with compliance teams and legal departments are best positioned to navigate the new framework, not just because they've been in the game for years, but also because they're the ones most likely to have a team of financial experts and lawyers that can help them push the envelope. In contrast, smaller developers and grassroots DeFi projects are in no position to compete on that level. In other words, the bill doesn't hand crypto to Wall Street, but it opens the door wide enough for Wall Street to walk in comfortably. This brings us to crypto native projects. The upside for crypto is real, but it's conditional. Decentralized networks gain a path out of permanent legal gray zones, and the reduced risk of retroactive enforcement. Okay. And additionally, these networks gain protection from being labeled securities by default. However, the burden of proving decentralization and maintaining it under evolving regulatory definitions may push many of these projects toward formal governance and structures that can look increasingly centralized over time. And of course, this begs the question, does it preserve decentralization at all under these circumstances? And the answer, only partially. and by now, many of you are likely starting to think that the word clarity is a bit of a misnomer in a bill that brings anything but clarity to an issue that was largely walking on its own 2 feet already. The bill recognizes centralization and decentralization as a legal concept, which is significant, but it does so after the fact by asking regulators to decide when a network is, quote unquote, sufficiently decentralized. And this, of course, creates a paradox. To avoid regulations, projects must satisfy regulators. To satisfy regulators, projects may adopt formal structures. If formal structures reduce risk, undermining decentralization itself then comes into the scope of understanding. And so in practice, decentralization becomes something that is certified and not assumed. In other words, while this bill leaves crypto itself largely alone, it puts several steps between crypto and the ways in which it's typically used. And those steps will effectively create the same stopgaps that current exchanges already suffer. So the entire crypto market is effectively scrutinized the same way any other transaction is. So why does this matter now, and why is it happening now? Now, crypto was born as a reaction to centralized financial power. The Clarity Act doesn't kill that vision, but it certainly reframes it. Instead of resisting the system, crypto is being absorbed into it. And in my opinion, that's basically the antithesis of why crypto was made in the first place. Why now? I'm thinking invasions of Venezuela, recent bombings in Iran, the taking over of oil, and discussions of perhaps taking Greenland may have something to do with the timing of this thing. And for policymakers, the bill is about order. And that's how they're coining it, right? For institutions, it's about access, which obviously is going to be a benefit for them. For developers, it's about survival, which is going to make things strained for grassroots DeFi projects. And for users, it's about whether crypto remains meaningfully different from traditional finance or merely faster and digital. The bottom line is that the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act effectively does what its name suggests, but not in the way most of us might expect. It clarifies jurisdiction, not freedom. It replaces chaos with structure, but not autonomy. It invites institutional participation without explicitly banning decentralization. So whether or not that represents progress or capture depends on what you believe crypto was meant to be. Clarity, as it turns out, is not necessarily the same thing as liberty. Coming up, I'll discuss my final thoughts on what stablecoins and CBDCs will mean after Washington's great crypto reset, which is, in my opinion, where all of this is leading anyway. And I'll also provide a list of things that we can all do to take down all monetary systems that we don't like and even beat mainstream media at their own game. Trust me, it's all related. This is just one half of the full podcast, which you can hear in its entirety by going to legallyinsanenews.com and signing up as either a free or a paid member. Now, this podcast is free regardless, and it's available to the public from either membership. So be sure to head over there to listen to that. It's going to be a very interesting talk. Thanks so much for watching and supporting indie journalism.